welcome to our third and final demonstration of our election equipment vendors. If you've been here before, you know the spiel. The election board here in St. Louis County has had equipment for over 13 years, and we went out with a request for proposal back in January to get the bids from vendors around the country. We had 4 vendors supply their bids. They submitted proposals. Our evaluation team here at the election board, which is made up of both Democrats and Republicans, an equal number, went through the evaluation process and whittled the number from 4 down to 3. Those 3 are ES&S, Dominion, and Hart. And we've had demonstrations from both ES&S and Dominion, and this is our final demonstration, and Hart is here today. So I don't think I ever said. I'm Rick Stream. I'm the Republican Director of Elections. Eric Fay is in the background back there. He is the Democrat Director. Our Deputy Director is Julie Light and Christian Tolbert. And we have our staff, our training staff. If you're one of the poll workers, you know our training staff. For all of these demonstrations, we have invited the public to be a part of it, to not only listen to the demonstration, but then participate in working with the equipment, and definitely to fill out the evaluation sheets that you have, the yellow sheets. We want your feedback on this so that we can get a good idea of what you as workers and the public think about this particular equipment. So we've gotten very good results as far as the quantity of results from our previous 2 demonstrations, and we hope that we're going to get the same from you all today. So please ask questions during the demonstration, and definitely when you're actually working with the equipment, make sure that you understand how it works and give us your honest feedback, because we value it. So without further ado, Eric, do you want to say anything as you're leaving the room? No. Eric's got a cold, so he wanted me to step in and do it today. But we do appreciate you being here, taking 2 hours out of your day to come here and give us your input. This is a very important decision. The cost of this equipment is in, at least $10 million for all the vendors, and it's an important decision for the voters of St. Louis County and also for the taxpayers of St. Louis County. So we want to make sure that we pick the equipment that's the best for the voters. It's going to give us obviously honest results, of course, but it's easy to use, and it's easy for the voters to use and also for our workers to use. And that's why we're doing this. That's why we want the public's input on all this. So please give us that, and we thank you again for being here. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the representatives from Hart, and Wayne, you're going to speak first. So thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Good morning. My name is Dwayne Brooks. I'm the Regional Sales Director for Hart Civic, and I'd first like to thank St. Louis County for inviting us out to be a part of this. To Rick and Eric and the rest of the St. Louis County election staff, thank you again. I'd like to thank all of you for coming today and being a part of democracy, not just today, but every day you guys go out and support the elections office at the polls. So a little bit about Hart Civic. And I'm a sales guy, so I could probably sit up here for the next 2 hours and do that, but I know that you didn't come here to hear me talk for 2 hours. You want to get a chance to see the equipment and hear a lot about it. We are founded in 1912. We have been around for a while, a little over 100 years old. We are right out of Austin, Texas. Everything you see here today is manufactured in Austin, Texas. We're going to talk about the 5 things you see on the screen here. We're going to talk about an all-new platform from the ground up. Why we chose to do it that way as opposed to bolting onto an older system as some of our competitors have done. We're going to talk about modern design and a common platform. Many of you have already seen, as you look across here, that every device looks pretty similar. That's really important when you're learning how to operate the devices. Compact, lightweight design. You'll notice here, this is our scanner and our ballot box. We're going to set that up in front of you here today. Also, we're going to talk about security. It's baked into the DNA and how we designed our equipment. We're going to show you some things that maybe you haven't seen or even thought about, but over the course of designing this system, our engineers baked into the DNA of the Verity platform. And last but not least, we're going to talk about ballot transparency. Everyone in this room, hopefully, is a voter. And it's important on your ballots to know exactly your vote is being cast the way that you intend. So this is what we're going to show you today. We call it the Verity Top 5. Sean's going to take over and kind of walk you through the Verity platform. Thank you.
you speak closer?
Can you hear me now?
No, you can, you're laying here. Put your laying here.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's on. Hello? That's all I gotta do, right? Green light.
Turn the volume down.
No,
Testing, 1, 2.
Way to go, Carol.
I did that on purpose because the point is you got to know your equipment and how to use it. He's the guy who knows about this, which I don't. So, my name is Sean Phillips. Sorry about that little technical delay. What I'm going to do here today is walk you through how to set up this equipment, how to get it ready for your voters, how to take it down at the end, and everything in between working with your voters along the way. We think that we have a really easy to use system. We've put a lot of research into it, and as Dwayne mentioned, we built this system all new from the ground up. Hart's been around for a long time. We do have legacy voting systems. We're in 18 states across the country here. But we wanted to build a brand new system with easy to use setup design, newest security protocols, and also new technology that's going to last you for a long time. The supply chain of your equipment is important, and this is the latest certified system in the United States and here in Missouri especially. So I'm going to kind of go through and hit on these points as we walk through throughout the day. But what I really want to do is dive right into the meat of why you're all here today, and we're going to set this up for you. We did leave probably the most complicated and in-depth part of the setup down for you today. So we're not hiding anything. I'm going to set this up for you. We haven't just set up a nice, easy display here. We're going to do it hands-on, and you'll be able to time me, see how quick it is ready to set up. Yeah, get your phones ready. And when you learn one of these, you know them all. So that's the really great design about this system because of the common platform. So again, it's all new. We've built this system brand new. We did not bolt on to our existing legacy systems, which some of the other systems have done. Some of the scanners that you've seen and other pieces and components are already over 10 years old. They've been used for that long around the country. So we think a new system, that's what you're here to look at today, should be truly new, and this is what we've brought here for you. So I'm going to just go ahead and dive right into the setup of our equipment. And a lot of you in the back may not be able to see this because it's a small, compact design. So we designed our system. Nothing is over 30 pounds. It's all lightweight, compact, easy to transport. It's great for the county as far as storage space and warehousing. And you'll be able to get it into the polling place and get it set up very quickly, very efficiently, and you'll be ready to go, hopefully, with plenty of time before the doors open and you've got the voters coming in. The second component of this part, the scanner, is our collapsible ballot box. So this is the ballot box design. Again, nothing over 30 pounds. This weighs about 20. And it's a fully collapsible design that sets up in just a couple of minutes. So it comes in a carrying bag that I'm going to hand off to Dwayne here. And I'm going to try and be here in the middle of the aisle so a lot of you can see. But there's great instructions for you written on to the side of the unit. So that can be helpful, but I think once you do this one time, you'll realize that it's pretty simple and easy, and you won't have to read those instructions every time. Now on the back side, there's just a couple of bungee cables that are keeping the top of the ballot box from swinging around while it's in transport. So this closes the top here, and there's a floor inside. Now I don't have to dive into this ballot box to close the floor, because I can push it down, and then you'll see up here in the front, there are two signs that say press here just to lock that into place. And now we have a fully secure, lightweight ballot box that's ready to collect the voters' ballots. Now, it is steel reinforced hinges. It's got a 5-point locking mechanism. The door overlaps the inside opening so that there's no way that, paper can pass through this. And a couple of those things that I did, like being able to close the floor and complete the box, you've got to do that before that lock will lock into place. So once you lock it in place, you know that it's secure and ready to go. There is an emergency ballot slot that is available because that's a federal requirement that if something were to happen to the machine, voters can put their ballots into that slot, and those ballots would be captured in a separate compartment and they would not mix in with the other ballots that drop down below.
How do you get those out of that little compartment, the ballots?
There's a half door in the back that allows you to get those ballots out of the separate compartment. But it would be our, goal that you never have to use that. That's just for emergencies only.
That thing over from top of it?
That's correct, yes ma'am. So, any questions I can answer right now about the ballot box?
Will you show us
That's
how
it.
they gonna look?
What's that?
Will you show us how they gonna look in the top of it?
Yeah, yes ma'am, I'm gonna set the scanner on top of it. We're gonna go through the whole setup. You bet. Okay, so I'm gonna slide this
Can
over.
you disassemble that so we can see how easy it is to disassemble it?
Oh, sure, yeah. So the lid just folds right back over. Well, actually, one thing I'll do first is raise up the floor. So it does have these little pull tabs that you can see up in the front here. So we raise up the floor, and then we swing over the lid, and it collapses back down. And then there are a couple of clips on the sides that you lock in place. Any questions there?
The ballot machine fits right on top of that?
It does, that's what we'll be doing next.
How's it get?
Yes, sir, it's designed, so the question is this as high as the ballot box gets? And that is, and it's because it's designed for wheelchair accessibility as well, for side access wheelchair accessibility.
Right, but I mean, I've got a vote like this.
No, so you'll be voting at these stations.
Oh, okay.
And this is
All right.
where you'll just scan and deposit your ballot.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Good questions. Glad I answered. Yes.
So we're talking about having an emergency bin, is that also used for provisional ballots?
It could be used for that. That would be more of a procedural item that the county would, I don't want to say one thing, and the county would be doing something different with the provisionals, but it absolutely could be used for that. Yes, was there another question?
Yes, right here.
Oh, yes.
So at the end, when we're shutting down, we're pulling the ballots out.
Yes, and we do have an option for a bag that will catch all the ballots. You can pull out, zip it up, and then it's got a way that you can seal it up with a tamper-evident seal and bring that back to the polling place. So we'll show you that. So I'm going to slide this over now to show you the process for setting up the device on top of the ballot box. So again, this is our scanning device. This is a 28-pound device with everything you need inside. And then it just sits down on top of the ballot box, and there are feet on the bottom of it that match the footprint on top of the scan unit, or the ballot box, I should say. Inside, we push this back to lock it in place. It's now secured to the box, and I'm going to complete the process closing the floor after I reset it up. So one of the things that I want to emphasize again that you see on the screen is the common platform of our designs. So our design, that common platform, means that when you learn how to set up any one of these devices that we're going to talk about here today, you know how to set them all up. They use shared components. The power cables are all the same. The batteries are all the same. It means that when we're doing the training with you, you really just need to learn that one device. Your manual will cover that one device, and you'll be able to use that same manual to start them all. Any questions there? Okay. So we're going to open up the device. It opens up suitcase style, and the tablet is inside. It goes into a docking station right here and then leans back. Now, we don't want some enterprising voter running off with this. So there is a lock. Just waiting for the key here. And the lock actually activates a switch. So I forget to do this all the time. But if I forget to do that, when I turn on the device, the very first thing it says is lock the tablet. And it's kind of that gateway. You have to do that before it will allow you to move forward. Okay. There is a basic power cable that plugs into the back of the device. And then there is a power button as well. This is going to take just a few minutes to boot up, and that's part of the security. So we do security through defense in depth, and what that means is there are multiple layers of security built into this device. One of them is what is happening right now because there is basically a fingerprint of the software that is on that device, and every time you power it on, it's checking against that fingerprint to make sure that the exact right software and what is certified here in the state of Missouri is running every single time. So that's one layer of the security that's built in. At this point, the only thing that we have to do is enter a 6-digit passcode, and then the polls are open and they're ready to be ready to accept ballots. Any questions there? So open the suitcase, dock the tablet, lock the tablet, turn it on, 6-digit passcode. You're ready to go.
Good question.
How long would the battery last?
Backup battery on the device is required to last a minimum of 2 hours.
Oh,
Out of usage, you'll get longer than that. One of the really nice things that we built into this is if you've got power in your building and you accidentally forget to plug it in and you turn it on, or maybe your power strip isn't turned on or there's something like that going on, it'll alert you and say, you're running on battery power. Is this what you really intend to do? And if not, you can say, oh, well, I need to plug in the power strip or I need to turn it on. But if the power really is out, there's a big button that says, I need to use the battery power. I got to open these polls and we got to start voting because there's been a power outage.
you could do both, you can go either way.
Correct, yes. Yeah, ideally you're running on AC power if you've got power in the building, so you're not draining the battery unnecessarily. But if that power goes out, then it's a seamless, you wouldn't even know from the device. It'll just keep going on battery power. Yes, sir.
How long with the battery power? How long with the battery power?
Minimum of 2 hours. Yes, sir.
How susceptible are they to building power fluctuations?
They have built-in surge protection in the power brick. Yeah. So if there is any power fluctuations, the device is going to be just fine.
You just printed something over there. What is that?
So what it prints every time is a power-on self-test. So it's checking all the components, and it's letting you know very clearly on the tape that everything has passed and everything is operating correctly. And then you can see it's at the open polls code, which is a 6-digit code that you enter to open the polls. But what I'd like to do now is step back. Yes, one last question.
Is there a countdown on the use of the battery?
There is an indicator that lets you know when the battery is running low. And while it's plugged in, it will trickle charge. It'll be charging that battery. So you should have a full charge if you do have power outage.
Do those screens need to be calibrated?
Calibration is done by the county, part of the warehousing, and we recommend annual calibration, but these are 5-wire resistive touchscreens that they can go, they're rated for many, many, many touches before they need calibration. Yes?
I know it's probably a slim chance, but we had somebody unplug one of our machines last time, we almost lost all our information. So by chance we lose power, the battery backup runs down, what happens to all the information that's in the machine?
All the information is totally safe. So it's stored in what's called non-volatile memory. So even if I sent that unit out without a battery and I pulled the plug, all of the data is right there. As soon as I restore power to it, it picks up right where it left off. No data was ever been lost. And that's required for being certified. Yes.
I think you said this earlier, but I wasn't sure. It charges while you're using it?
Correct. The batteries are being charged while it's on. Okay, so I want to take a step back and let's go to the beginning of the process for the voters as they check in. So they're going to check in using the poll pads, which you're familiar with, and the poll pad will produce a ticket that we integrate with. So this first device here on the table that I want to talk about is called the controller, and it's centralized command and control for the poll workers in the polling location to manage all of the voting devices where the voters will be marking their selections and printing their paper trail, their paper record. What this allows you to do as a poll worker is to monitor the status of every single booth in your line, and one of these controllers can handle as many as 12 voting devices down the line. So we can manage our line of voters here, then we know immediately when a booth is available, then we can use our barcode integration to scan the ticket that came from the poll pad. We do have a way that we could mark it provisional, and if they checked in as a provisional voter on the poll pad, that would follow through to the scanning, and it would produce a provisional ballot that even if that voter tried to put it through the scanner, it would not allow them to do that. So it's going to safeguard that provisional ballot from going in through the scanner. But a regular voter, it's going to identify that this voter needs one sheet of blank paper. This is a blank sheet of paper, which is the indicator of how to insert it into the machine. And then we will also issue a 5-digit access code. Now that's a randomly generated code. It's not in sequential order. Each one is going to be totally unique and different. And the voter needs these 2 items to carry to the voting machine where they mark their selections on screen, and all of the selections are then printed on this paper record. And that will finally be deposited into the scanner on their way out, and that's how they complete the process and cast their ballot. So what I'm going to do right now is actually take down these privacy panels. We wanted to show you these because there is privacy for the voter as they're working through the process. And these privacy panels, again, are universal. They fit on every single type of stand, whether it's the accessible stand, and then over here at the scanner as well. So again, the shared platform means that all of the peripheral items and the accessories that you need are all universal. So you don't have to worry about grabbing the power cord for that device versus that device, or the battery for one or the other, or the privacy panels. It's all just universal and really easy to keep track of and manage within the polling location. I want to set these aside just so we can have a little better visibility here. But what I'm going to do now is play the part of the voter. And as the voter, I'll take my blank sheet of paper and my access code and begin the process on the screen. So I touch here to get started. I'm entering my 5-digit code, 15826. And then now there's an animation that tells me I need to insert my sheet of paper into the machine. By the way, back here at the controller, where the polling place official is sitting, it has now told me that booth number 1 is in use. It is not available for anyone to go to. And we've got these pretty close together here today, but we know that in a polling location you might need separation for privacy, and we've got long tables that can keep those separated. But I put the ballot in, or excuse me, the piece of paper into the machine, and the machine grabs it. And it tells me very clearly with a big green check that the sheet was inserted correctly. And it says 3 things about that for the voter. It's normal for the paper to be partly outside of the machine. It's going to stay like this while you make your selections. And then finally your selections will be printed on this paper record. After that, the voter can begin voting. They can learn to use the ballot, or they can view a list of the contests that they're about to vote on. But a voter who's ready to jump in and begin voting, they can do so. By the way, I'm still holding this access code. This access code is a one-time use code. It's not tied to me as the voter. If I keep it, that's fine. If I throw it away, that's fine. If I drop it on the floor and somebody else picks it up, they can't use it, so it's secure in that way. And then as a polling place official, you can, on the controller, check the status of any code. So if you do find one lying on the floor or on the table, you can check it. And right now this code is going to tell me that it's in use, it's active on a station. After I print my paper record, it would let me know that it's been used and it's completed. So from here, it's a pretty straightforward process of navigating through the screens and marking your selections. It's a touchscreen interface. I can change my choice. I can deselect my choice, but the system will not allow me to overvote any contest. So if it's a vote for one, I can only vote for one option. As I click through it, I can make my selections. I do have the ability to enter a write-in, which brings up the keypad where I can type in my write-in selection. And I can skip through contests if I'd like. So there is some visual indicators that let me know. Right now, if I've made no selections, the button says skip. As soon as I make a selection, it changes colors and it says next. So little visual clues in here that help the voter navigate through the ballot. But I'm going to skip a contest in here. We also have a proposition. And then finally, we are showing a cumulative or a vote for 2 race. Yes. So it does allow me to vote for more than one. If I try to select a third one, it actually tells me which choice is going to be deselected and which choice would be added. So it's very clear for the voter in that regard. I've reached the end of the ballot now, and I'm ready to review my choices. So it has a screen that lists every choice that I've made. I can scroll through this list, and it does identify places where I might have skipped a contest and made no selections in that race. I can hit the back arrow to return into the ballot. I can also press any contest specifically and go directly to that contest to then make a change or make a correction and jump back and review my ballot at any time. This review screen is required. You're going to see this review screen before you can finalize the process and print your ballot. So every voter sees the review screen. When they're happy with what's on the review screen, we then print the record. Yes, ma'am?
How many precincts does that accommodate, and is there something in the code that indicates what ballot they should receive if there's more than one precinct?
Yes, so the system can handle, oh, sorry, there's one last thing. It says, are you sure you want to print your record? And I am sure I want to print my record. So the system, to answer your question though, the system can accommodate as little as one precinct or as many as all of them or anything in between. Now, on election day, I think it's a pretty close one-to-one relationship to polling places and precincts. But if there are, oh, here you know, there are some that have multiple precincts. So the system will accommodate that, and yes, it is in the code that you're scanning when you come off of the poll book. So the voter checks in, they're in precinct 101. That precinct is part of the code that we scan, and then that brings up that exact ballot style for that voter. Yes?
What kind of ink are these machines using when you have to refill?
Did you say ink?
Yeah.
There is no ink, it's thermal printing. So it's just special thermal paper, the ink will never run out. Yes?
After the voter presses that button, that vote becomes official, once the paper comes out, she cannot change her ballot, am I right?
That's not exactly correct. So the question is, at this point, could I make any changes? Is this an official voted record? It is not, because this is a ballot marking device, and the vote is not stored on this device at all. In order to complete the process, and I think you've seen this with the other systems, it needs to go through a scanner, and that's where the vote is tabulated and recorded and stored. And at that point, then it's final. But if the voter took this piece of paper and realized that they made a mistake, that could still be spoiled and they would go through the process. Now, one thing that I wanted to point out is the controller back here for you to monitor has let me see every step of the process that the voter went through. Of course, you're not seeing what the voter's selecting or anything like that, but it tells you that the booth is in use. And then when they've printed their ballot, it tells you that it is printing. And then now what it's saying, because I haven't removed the piece of paper, it still knows that the piece of paper is there. It's telling me, the voter, please take your paper record. There are some lights that are flashing at me. And the system now is saying that the paper has not been removed. So that's a really good check that you can say, I see, the voter at booth 5 is printing their ballot. It is now printed successfully. It gives them 2 or 3 seconds to remove it. And if they don't remove it, it's now alerting you as the poll worker that you can hopefully catch them and keep them from walking away if that's something that they didn't understand how to complete the process.
Is this a wireless system?
It's not wireless. That's a great question. These systems are connected through a cable and they're daisy chained down the
So
wall.
they can't be hacked?
They cannot be hacked. Yeah, it's a completely closed network. None of our machines or the software that'll be in the county office is ever connected to a county network, an outside network, definitely not the internet. And we do not build any type of remote transmission into our devices. Some of the other ones have modems built in and they say, well, we just turn those off. We don't believe in that. We just have zero modem or transmission capability in our devices.
When you spoil a ballot, do you just go back to the controller, or do you have to go back to the poll pad?
That's a little bit of a procedural question, but from a technical standpoint, I can tell you that this is now just a piece of paper that needs to be spoiled, just like as if it was a hand-marked paper ballot. And then the voter would need to be issued a new access code from the controller. I don't necessarily think that they would need to go all the way back to the poll pad. But that's more of a counting question. So, yes.
Is the font are big enough so I'm sure people can read all this?
I'll cover that in just a second. The question is, can we change the font size? And yes, you can, and I'll show you here in just 1 second. I do want to touch on one thing that is a huge differentiator between Hart and some of the other systems that you might have seen. And it's the point that I have on the screen here about ballot transparency. We never put the votes in a barcode. We never encode voter selections into any barcode. Words matter. What our system is reading are the words that are on the piece of paper. So other systems you may have seen, you can review the selections that you made on the summary, But actually what is being tabulated is a barcode or a series of barcodes at the top of that piece of paper. We do not think that's transparent. And if the voter cannot read what is driving the tabulation, we don't think that that's a true paper-based paper trail system. So, question down here says, well, what's this barcode? This is a security barcode. So you can scan that barcode using any QR code scanner, and you'll see that there are no voter selections in that barcode. What it is, though, is a security hash file that is verifying that this is a ballot that came from this election and from these machines. Because we're using optical character recognition to determine the voter selections and to drive the tabulation, we also need security on that as well, so that somebody can't just type up a bunch of ballots, that can be read through the OC. So it's a great combination. So again, that's a really big differentiator. Hart never encodes voter selections into an unreadable barcode. The thing that the voter is reading is what is driving the tabulation, and we're not hiding anything into that barcode.
All right, now you said you can do write-in.
Yes, sir.
All right, so then it prints, it actually counts the votes by the names,
Correct.
all right? On a write-in vote, how many different spellings for that person's name will it recognize?
So it'll just capture the write-in vote, and then the county goes through those write-ins and resolves them. So yes, my name is Sean Phillips. Somebody might spell it S-E-A-N, some might spell it S-H-A-W-N. At that point, those are just aliases of the same write-in candidate, and that's up to the board to decide if those are counted or not. But yes, the write-in is available here, and I did a write-in here, and it actually identifies it as a write-in vote. I can review my selections, and at this point, because I've reviewed it on screen, I'm now reviewing it on paper, I can then carry it over to the scanner. So I haven't finished the process, as I've been talking, of entering the passcode to open the polls on the scanner, but it's a 6-digit passcode, and you'll see in just a second it'll print the opening tape here that lets me know the time and date and that the polls are now open. And right now, you can see, some of you up front can probably see there are red lights here on the scanner path. In just a second, when the scanner engages, those now turn green, and there's a very clear, we call these the landing lights, where the voter inserts their piece of paper.
I think you missed part of my question. All right, like you said, all right, we're gonna spell your name wrong 4 different times.
Okay.
Does it record each one of those for
Yes.
the 4 different ballots?
The system is just saying, somebody put a write-in here, and they wrote in Sean Phillips, or Dwayne Broxton, or Mickey Mouse, and it's just saying, I see what that says. And then it's the county's job to go through those write-ins.
But it's gonna record it.
It's going to record it, yes, sir. Every name that is on this printed ballot record will be recorded in the tabulation system. Yes, sir.
If it's spelled the same way 3 times, does it record it 3 times?
Across 3 different ballots?
Yeah, across 3 different ballots.
Yes, it's just recording
So the
the
county
letters.
has to tabulate 1, 2, 3,
They'll see every instance of that write-in,
right,
Yes,
whether
sir.
it's spelled the same or not.
whether it's spelled the same or differently. Yes.
So can a voter say, I don't wanna use any of this, I just wanna use a hand-marked ballot?
We do have that option, yes. So we have, and we've discussed that with the county to have it pre-printed or printed on demand, hand-marked ballots that could be marked and put through a scanner. Yes, ma'am.
So the old-fashioned way with the
With the,
ballots?
yes.
If that's what someone wants, they can do it.
Well, depending on the selection that the county makes. That is an option that we provide.
Your scanners can't scan them.
Yes, they can. Our scanners can scan these type of ballots from a ballot marking device, and they can also scan hand-marked ballots, so, yep.
So Mike, how is that gonna work? Can you explain that with the two, their ballot and the paper ballot? How we gonna do that when we hand them the, paper, when they get their private name?
Yep,
The
so,
number? How
yeah,
many-
so whether we give them a hand-marked paper ballot or the ballot marking device ballot, it can go into the scanner. Now, the scanners have to be configured as such, so,
What about the number? You know, they got a separate number. You know what I'm saying? You gonna give them, the number gonna be printed.
mhm.
Okay, so they already got the paper, so they gonna put the numbers in there when you just slide the paper in? You
So-
know what I'm saying? If they don't, maybe they don't wanna use that.
Yep, if they don't wanna use the ballot marking device and that option is available, they would not get any access code, they would just get a paper ballot
That's it?
that they would mark with pen and paper. Yep. So, I do wanna continue on and
I know you-
complete the
one more
process here.
One more question I wanna ask.
Yes.
Will you just show us how to do the spoil ballot on that sheet, and we got to give them a different code?
Okay, yeah, so the process, and again, this is where I look to the county, I don't wanna say a wrong process, but if I, as the voter, decide that I've made a mistake here, or I wanna change something, this piece, I have not cast my ballot yet, I still have it, it hasn't gone through the scanner, so I would need to go back to the polling place official, say I made a mistake, they would spoil this ballot, probably put it in some sort of spoiled ballot envelope, and then it's just back to the beginning to issue them a new code so that they can fix their, ballot and
So
make
we
the correct
scan the
selection.
paper again, we scan the paper again.
You can scan the paper again, or there is a way that you can do it manually, just saying I need to add another, voter here and get a new access code.
Okay.
Yes,
How do you know whether to put the arrow face up or face down?
it doesn't matter. It can go in any orientation. Yeah.
Same way over here?
So it can go, it needs to go in with the arrow facing in, or if the voter did do it this way, that would still work. The only thing that the voter can't do is put it in with the printed side facing up. And I'll do that here in just a second, and if you do that, it tells you very clearly, remove your paper and turn it over and put it back here. Yes. So, but on the scanning side, I wanna be very clear, the ballot can be inserted in any orientation. It doesn't matter, right side up, right side down, footer first, header first. It can't go in sideways. I shouldn't say any orientation, but it's gotta go in lengthways, but either direction there. So I'll turn it over and I'll even do it backwards and put it through. So it's gonna take about 5 seconds. It's gonna scan that ballot and then drop it down into the secure ballot box down below. And if I had marked out any of the names, tried to change anything, if I realized, oh, I didn't want to vote for Sean, I want to vote for Dwayne, scratch it out and write Dwayne in there,
Yeah.
it's going to say, I can't read these. You know, I'm looking for a specific type in there, and it's gonna send it back out and say, you know, I couldn't read the selections on your ballot. And that's just proving that we're not looking into any barcodes or anything like that. We're looking at the words on the sheet of paper, on the printed record.
So these codes, when you go into the poll pad and you're asking them, I guess they want a paper ballot or electronic, that's what we normally do. And then you said they're given a code to put in the machine. Where does this code come from? That piece of paper that's printed out
Yeah,
when they register?
let me show you again. It's actually 2 slips, so it's a 2-step process. So voter registration at the poll pad and check in there is always separated from voting and tabulation.
So they're going to 2 different people then?
Maybe, it could be the same person, but it's 2 steps. So the poll pad could be sitting right next to the controller, and you get checked in. The poll pad produces this, so this lets me know that you are a registered voter and that you are in this precinct or this ballot style, right? And then, because we don't want our systems ever connected to a system that would be connected to a network or to the internet, we just scan this to get their ballot style off of it. So now I've jumped the air gap, I'm not connected to anything, there's no wireless or wired connection to that, and I scan this and it shows me this voter is in precinct 401, and I can now issue them their access code and their piece of paper.
So you have a separate person to handle that, or?
You could have a separate person, it could be the same person to do that 2-step process.
Because you said they have, if something goes wrong there, you have them go back to get another code. Do they go back to the poll worker?
Now they go back to scan the paper.
That's really, I don't wanna dictate what would become a county process, from the technical side. They could do it either way. It might be that they need to go all the way back to the beginning of the line and explain what happened and go back through. From a technical standpoint, they just need to come here to the controller and get a new 5-digit access code.
I'm in saying they can do that, 2 or 3.
Again, that's all county process. We're
Can we
getting
do it
into a
twice?
lot of the questions that are more procedural and not on the technical equipment side. So
How much paper do we gonna be having? to be doing, if they want to do the electronic? Is it a bundle or a?
Yeah, so the county would deliver enough thermal paper, and this is reusable, so anything that's not used can be reused for the next election. And the paper rolls that are inside the machine, it's an easy drop load printer here. Again, I mentioned it's thermal paper, but there's no spindle or anything like that. Paper needs to be rolling out from the bottom, and you just drop the paper roll in and close the lid.
So that's be replaced when we run out?
Yes, so if that runs out, you drop a new paper roll in. And one of the nice things about the compartment here is that we can deliver with an extra paper roll in
Oh,
there.
that's nice.
How many votes spent on it?
So that's a tricky thing for us to answer. The question is, how many voters can we do on the paper roll? The problem is that there's gonna be opening tapes in the morning and zero tapes. And so I don't wanna tell you that'll do 800 voters, and then you have a zero tape that's longer than I expected, and you only get 700 voters. So it's a tricky one for us to answer, and the way we answer it is just to say, you've got an extra roll in the compartment. If you need to use that extra roll, it's really simple to swap out. And maybe when you use that extra roll, you might want to make a call that I'm going to need another roll potentially.
Sean, a gentleman in that jacket. Yes, sir.
For this question, right now, you come in, you go to the poll pad. Okay, the poll pad, you print either whether they want paper ballot or they want to do electronic. Okay? Then you take the rest of the piece of paper, you take the piece of paper, you go to the next person, and then, in our case, we use the assistant supervisor. They take you over to either electronic machine or to where you sit down or stand up and do your paper ballots. So you're still seeing two people, and that's what he's asking, is there gonna be another person in line? I don't see any changes. You come to the first person, you get your register in, you get your piece of paper, and you take it to them, and then they'll take you up to here with the code and either put it in there. Okay, I don't see any more people being involved in it outside of what you already have right now.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Yes.
What if it's a big election and it won't fit on an 8.5 by 11 sheet?
We can go to 8.5 by 14, but remember, these are summary ballots. So the selection that you make, it's just gonna be the contest title and then the choice that you've selected. As opposed to, you might have seen like 8.5 by 20-inch ballots in the past. That has all the candidates on it though, and all the proposition text and things like that. So we've done a lot of testing to ensure that the biggest ballots, 8.5 by 20, can still fit on that 8.5 by 14, because it's just a summary of the selections that you made. We can fit it all in one. Now, if it did get to the point where it is spanning into 2 sheets, then when I add that voter based on their precinct and their ballot style, it might say, you need to give the voter 2 sheets of paper. We're gonna avoid that at all costs, and we've done a lot of testing. But then at that point, the voter would insert their sheet, it would print their selections, they would insert a second sheet, and it would print those. But that's gonna be, we hope, pretty,
And the scanner recognizes that?
it recognizes both, yes.
So, does every voter have to go to the controller?
Every voter stops at the controller to get an access code.
And there's one controller?
There's one controller, yes.
So-
Well, there could be more, I should reiterate that. One controller can control up to 12 devices.
Right.
And if you need to have more than 12, you might have, 2 lines of 10 with 2 controllers. But remember, these devices are simply the ballot marking device where the voter is going to make their selections. The scanner is where every ballot will be deposited, and that's where it just takes a few seconds.
I'm just trying to understand the process of walking in the door.
Yes.
You walk in the door, you go to the poll pad, and with your ticket, you have to go to the controller to get your,
Not if they're voting paper.
not the voting hand mark.
So I want to discuss now some of the accessibility. So yes, if you go with a hand-marked paper ballot, you wouldn't stop at the controller. That should be clear. Yes.
Right, you showed us how easy it was to drop a roll of paper in. What happens if you drop it in upside down?
When it prints, it'll print nothing because it's going to hit the untreated side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, does it warn you that it's upside down, or do you have to visually,
You have to visually see it. Yes.
can you do a reprint then?
You can. Yep. Let's go and print the next one.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If I got this right, you go to the poll pad,
process one more time. So the voter will check in at the poll pad. The poll pad is a completely separate system from our voting system by design. Poll pads and voter registration systems need to be connected to networks so that, we can identify who you are, that you're there, you're part of the registered voter population. The poll pad produces this sheet. We scan this sheet so that we ensure that we get the proper ballot style to the voter. That's going to eliminate the potential for error. When I say that sheet is correct, or that precinct is correct, I then give the voter one sheet of paper, and then I give them the access code. These two items are what the voter then takes to any open and available.
Just adding one more thing in line, basically, from the poll pad to the machine.
You're gonna have to have somebody to give the piece of paper and the code.
Well, the same person that right now, when you go to the poll pad, you vote, or you paper, electronic, you get the piece of paper.
Right.
Okay, then you take that piece of paper, and in our case, we use the assistant supervisor. The assistant supervisor, take that piece of paper, okay, instead of walking into the machine first, they would go to this, scan it, get your code, and then go on to the actual machine to do your vote. So
Let me step in and make one.
He said the poll pad worker could do it too.
The poll pad can be right next to the controller. I check you in, check your ID, whatever is required to check you in. It prints up that ticket, I immediately scan it, and then I give you these. It's still one person.
Another step.
It's just an added step.
I
And
think
the-
it
but
didn't have to be the assistant supervisor, because if you pull me down, I'm not watching over all the time.
I don't think they did.
Well, that's why
It's different.
there are going to be changes to the process. And so, but one thing I want to point out, any system that you've looked at, there's going to be a method for getting that voter onto the machine to vote. Our system uses a little ticket, some of the others use an activator card. You've added a step in there, one way or the other. So that's going to be something that's going to change as part of the process. We are not here, Dwayne and I are not here today to say, well, it's going to be two people doing it, or it's going to be one person doing it. Are they going to be on the same desk, or they're going to be on multiple tables? We provide the solution, and then we work with the county, provide best practices, and then, we land at how does it, and it's going to be different, maybe here in St. Louis County versus, a county in another state, or a county even next door, because of the differences in the way polling places are run.
What about the ones with the hearing?
Yes, so that's what I need to get into next. We need to move on to the process of what a voter can do if they have disabilities. They need, to change the font size, listen to the audio ballot, all of that. So,
One real quick question. We've seen you scan the same voter ticket numerous times and get a different code. Hopefully, this is demo software that's allowing you to do that.
the code, remember, we're not looking at the voter at all. The system does not want to know that it was Dwayne or that it was Sean. The system is simply getting the precinct.
Code's only good one
So
time.
you could take a voter's ticket and come over here and scan it 10 times and get 10 different codes.
This code,
No.
I just
Right.
saying what he's saying.
No,
He's
the voters,
calling it 10 times the paper,
A
he don't
corrupt
want.
official could allow a person to take one ticket from there.
they could do that.
and vote multiple
But then
times.
you've got, you'll never balance, and, yeah. So that's what, again, that's more of a procedural thing, and that's why it might be one person doing it, just a one-step process.
So that's up to the,
So,
them to,
Yep.
maximize how many times you for a ballot, right?
correct.
All right, you go to the district.
So, I'm going to go to this device here. Notice that the stand is a little different. It's wider and lower for wheelchair accessibility. This device also, next to it, has what we call our ATI controller. So this is a tethered controller that it can be placed in the voter's lap. They can handle it whatever is most comfortable for them. And it's got the headphones plugged in, but it's a simple 3-button device that they can turn a wheel to navigate through the ballot and then press the select button to make their selections. The help button in the middle is there if they need additional help through the audio or on the screen, but it is not required to navigate through the ballot and make your selections. So we think this controller device is more naturally intuitive because it's just 2 buttons. You navigate turning the move wheel, and you select by pressing the select button. Now it does have Braille for voters who are visually impaired, and it does have dishing for voters who might use dialing wands or other things like that, other assistive devices to help them navigate through the ballot. Now, on screen, there's a lot of options as well to assist with that voter who might have special needs. So we'll enter the access code in the same way. I could have the headphones on and be turning the wheel, and it's reading the numbers to me, so I can insert my access code completely independently. But some of the other options that are available there, and I will insert my sheet. And we do have Braille and ribbed guidelines so that the voter who's visually impaired knows where to insert the ballot. It tells me that's inserted properly. And then there's a lot of settings that I can change in here. Screen contrast, text size, audio volume, and speed. So I can raise and lower the volume, and I can change the rate of speed at which it's read. So slow, normal, and fast. I can also do the contrast to be a high contrast white or a high contrast black, and I can up the font size to be a large font. So I can do any combination of these things to be a large font, high contrast interface that helps me navigate through, so I can see the selections that I've made much more clearly as I'm going through.
If you vote large font, will it print out large font?
We do have some options where we can change the font size on that sheet, but because it's the optical character recognition, it does need to stay within some certain parameters. But all of those selections that you've made, so if the voter comes in and puts it on a high contrast large font, and then when they complete their process, it does go back to the defaults for the next voter.
Yeah, but I just meant on this piece of paper that they get, it's no use having you vote in large font and have it come in small font, because they wouldn't be able to read what they just voted for.
Right, and we can adjust some of those font sizes in our template based on the size of the election. We have to balance, how many contests will be on that sheet and things like that. And then I believe that there's probably other assistive devices, magnifying plates and things like that that they could use if they needed beyond that.
Does it print in Braille?
It does not print in Braille, yeah, but it does read all the selections back to the voter. Yes.
I think the gentleman back behind you, if you raise the font on the screen, it doesn't automatically change the font on the print.
No, it would be a preset font, but we can preset it to be a larger font.
You'd have to do a separate action to do that.
Correct, ahead of time when we set up the election. Yes.
You do that, would it be per machine?
No, that would be a
Different font
universal.
or just
That would be
universal?
universal.
Okay, very good.
Yes, ma'am?
Do all the machines have those capabilities?
They do. That's a great question. So right now we've got this ATI controller device plugged into the unit that is wheelchair accessible. But let's say we had a voter who was in a wheelchair using this device as a touchscreen, and then someone else needed to use the headphones on this machine. We could unplug that controller from it and put it onto it.
And they could adjust the font.
And they can always adjust the font and things like that from any of the machines. Yeah, we're not limited to just having one machine that is the disabled access machine. They can all be made into that machine. Great question. But from here, this produces the exact same ballot as any of the other devices in the string. And that piece of paper, of course, can be put into the scanner in any orientation. It looks like every other ballot that was produced, whether they used, large font, all those things. That's another area where we don't want the settings that voter selected to change how their ballot appears. Because if you have one voter come in the polling place that needs to use a large font, then you know how that voter voted because their ballot looks different than some of the others.
You said it could print provisional ballots, and we do affidavits, and there's 5 or 6 different ones of the provisional ballots that has that capability. Not just one type of provisional ballot.
Right, any type of, all of your precincts could be loaded into the poll pad.
Precincts, ballots, provisional ballots, not the normal ballots. Is there only one that it can print? Or does it have multiple variations, multiple formats it can use?
Yes, so if you mean for like limited ballots,
I don't
federal
know, it seems, I can't
ballots, yeah.
rattle them off right now, but we got
Yes.
this whole big section, there's this way, then there's this way, then there's this way.
Yes, the system can be set up to have those,
All
any
those
iterations.
capabilities.
Any ballot that is programmed and part of this election can be produced and put on any machine so that you can then activate it on the machine.
I think what he's asking about, right now, provisional ballots have to be done on paper where they mark it themselves. But you had said something about doing provisional marking through.
Yes, yeah, so if the voter checks in provisionally, their slip, remember, like this, will identify that they're a provisional voter. Or we can even do it manually to create their access code, and there's a flag that we can say, mark that as provisional. They go to any open booth and vote just like any other voter would. Their ballot has a provisional tag on top of it though. And if they inadvertently went to the scanner and tried to scan it, it would say this is a provisional ballot. And then it needs to be kept separate so that it can be processed later and researched if that voter truly was eligible to vote.
So if a voter doesn't have an ID, they get a provisional ballot, paper ballot, fill it out. And right now the procedure is it goes into a provisional bin.
Yes.
If they return later with an ID, a valid ID, we, the poll worker, can retrieve that from the provisional bin and cast it, scan it into the reader.
I foresee no change to that process.
So
The only change
we can
is
get
that.
into that, I think we call it an emergency bin,
Yeah.
it's easy to get into that.
It is, yeah, there's a door on the back. But yes, the only change is now, and what I believe the only change is that the scanner now will catch a provisional voter from inadvertently trying to put their ballot through. But the rest of the process is the same. It needs to be in their envelope and go in the provisional slot. So again, getting very much into procedural things outside of the technical aspects of the system. So there will be some changes to the procedural and process there as well. But I think we've shown you, and hopefully we've shown you, a lot of streamlined and efficient processes here with this equipment.
How do you get the count from the scanner?
Great question. At the end of the night, the count comes off of the scanner on the thermal tape. So it's really a two-step process to close the polls at the end of the night. There's a button on the back of the machine that is the polling place official button, the poll worker button. You press that button, enter in your 6-digit code, and close polls. And at that point, it will, again, this is a procedural thing, if the county enables it to print a tabulation tape, it will print a tabulation tape. If they want to wait until it's been brought in for central tabulation, it can be deactivated, but that's a decision that the county makes. So, yes.
So do we get counts off the marking devices too?
The counts that you'll get off of the ballot marking devices are just statistical numbers of how many voters and how many ballots or printed vote records were processed on here. You will not get any results though, because remember, these machines do not store the votes at all.
But we do need to count how many people use it.
For reconciliation and balancing, yes ma'am. So, but at the end of the night, all of your votes and all of your results are on one device in one consolidated location. And the really great thing about this setup is at the end of the night, because of its compact design and its lightweight nature, we've proposed that you can actually, the media that's inside is under lock and seal, and you can actually just close up the device, keep it locked and sealed, and return it to central count the way that you received it. So that security and that chain of custody is maintained in that regard. Now, if the county says we want you to verify that seal, break it, and remove, that's an option that you can do as well, but we've left it flexible in that way because we believe, again, security is defense in depth. There's a lot of physical security as far as the seals. We've even designed the suitcase to be clamshell style. So when you close it up, you can actually put a tamper-evident seal around the handle, and when it's being transported back, you can know it hasn't been opened or tampered with in the middle between the polling location and being returned to central county. So lots of just really intuitive steps from the physical, like I just mentioned, to the security as far as the secure boot that it does, even down to the data level with the encryption that we do through digital signatures. of all those cast vote records.
So there's no SD card or,
There is,
flash
there
card
is. So
that you remove?
there is a removable media device. It's a USB device. It is under lock and seal here. And again, that would be the county's decision to say, will the poll worker remove it and bring it in? Or will the poll worker leave it sealed, and because this is a compact device, just bring the whole thing back in on election night?
So we got carry that whole.
A procedural option there,
This folds up.
Like a suitcase.
Like a
And we just roll it on.
just like that.
Pick it up and walk with it.
Just walk on.
Yes, sir.
What about auditing capabilities? I know the other people talk about, I don't quite understand how, if they'd have to do an audit or something, how would that affect the scanner or the control box or?
So any audits that would be done, so this is digital scanning, capturing, the full digital image of every vote that's cast. And then those images go with the removable drive into the tabulation software that the county will have. And then they have, and we went through this with them yesterday, they have really great filterability to say, we need to do an audit, a risk limiting audit or a standard, percentage audit of a certain precinct, a certain polling place, a certain contest, even, down to many, many different levels. Yes?
You're providing something we don't have now. Every ballot has a paper ballot
Correct.
that could be gone back through.
Correct. Yeah, it is a paper-based system with a paper trail for every vote cast. Yes, sir. One of the things that I do want to mention with regard to how the votes are tabulated and recorded is that every voter, when they vote, their vote is stored in 3 places. So we've got the removable media inside the device that we've talked about. We've got the device itself, which is storing the vote, and then we've got the paper record. So if one of those were to fall over, we have a way that we can recover and keep the integrity of the vote, for that precinct, for that polling location. So if they remove that drive, that USB stick, and lose it, or it gets damaged, they drop it in a puddle on a rainy night, we can go back to the machine and say, create a recovery drive for this, which is something also that, will be new, the redundancy of that vote to mitigate any risks that might happen along the way. Because things happen, we know that, and we need to be able to recover from them because we don't really get a redo.
So the white suitcase is actually storing it in 2 places?
Yep.
Until you remove the
Correct.
flash drive?
Correct, yeah. The votes are being stored in 3 places total, 1 physical and 2 electronic on the device.
Is there paper in that suitcase that needs to be replaced?
Same exact paper roll, thermal paper. Remember, everything is shared components.
Okay.
So, and one of the great things about our design here is also, we envision, this is a brand new system. Like I mentioned, some of the scanners that you looked at are already 10 years old. This is a new system, recently certified, and the supply chain is gonna last a long time. If the voting methodology here in St. Louis County changes 10 years from now, 12 years from now, we could convert these devices to be the other type of device if we need to at a fraction of the cost. So it's a really great investment for the county as far as longevity and supply chain goes in that regard. Yes, ma'am.
At the time of closing, will it automatically shut down on its own?
It will not, yeah. We don't want to set a polls close time because if you do have people in line at 7 o'clock, they need to process through. Now, there is a check that will not allow you to close the polls too early, but it will definitely keep you from, it will definitely allow you to keep the polls open longer if you do have some people waiting in line. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. And let's go back again to the beginning. The voter comes in, they get a slip of paper, which they give to the person at the controller,
Yes.
who gives them another piece of paper, a slip of paper, and then the voting piece of paper?
The voter takes that access code to the voting station where they then enter it into, to bring up
Okay,
their
what do you
ballot
mean
style.
they enter it?
It's a 5-digit code, and on the touch screen, they just hit in the
Okay,
numbers.
so they have to physically enter that code.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
And then they get the paper they're gonna vote with. And is that all, or do they get another slip of paper?
No, that's it.
Okay.
2 items. Remember, we have the blank sheet, It's gonna end up with the printed record, and then the code that they need, this is the key. It gives them access to the machine.
You have a question?
What I wanna know is, you said you could put that in any which way except sideways.
Yeah.
Alright, when it gets out of there, when you open it up and take all the ballots out, are they all have to be with the arrow up? Because when they come back here for tabulations, you always had to have all the,
Right.
with the
So-
corner.
Yep, couple of things about that. They do not, they're gonna fall in different ways. We know that based on how the voter puts it through, and that doesn't matter. Tabulation is taking place here at the scanner.
Right.
So they do not need to be rescanned when we brought them back here. But even if we
Because the
did,
tabulation equipment's gonna have to change too to accommodate all this.
the tabulation is done from the drive at the end of the night. We don't rescan the ballots when we bring them back in.
And you don't have to count the ballots either.
All of the results are on the drive that goes into the tabulation software. The votes are being scanned and recorded and tabulated at the polling location. And then when it comes back to the county, it's just a quick read of that USB drive.
And if you wanna write in a character, you'll have this alphabet on the screen.
Yes, ma'am. Yep, you can type in any write-in you need for any contest that has a write-in option available. Yes.
Absentee ballots, what happens there? I mean, does the county get them and they'll just throw them into the machine?
And for by mail ballots, absentee ballots, we talked about that solution with the county. It is a high-speed scanner that all those ballots come in here and they scan, they don't put them through this scanner. They could, but it's not as efficient. Yes.
Person comes in and says, I'm not.
No, you just, it's a provisional, and then you can't scan it.
So if the county opts to have hand-marked paper ballots, they would be checked in at the poll pad, and then this process is eliminated in the scanning pad based on the ballots. And then it goes through a scanner. Yes. It does have to be a scanner that's set for the hand-marked paper. It is our scanner. It's exactly like this. We do show multi-language capabilities, but here in St. Louis County, you would have an English only. But if the census data requires additional languages in the future, we wanted to show that it's capable of handling multiple languages.
Yeah. You said, all right, like right now, you voted, it took your paper, it printed it, you walked away, it's still sitting there. Now, you said it gives you an individual indication on the controller.
Yes.
Now, if these are set up so that you have privacy, in other words, it's turned around 180, you got the side panels up, all right, and you don't happen to glance over the controller, is there any kind of a visual indicator, like on the handle or something, like a LED or something that blinks, letting you know, hey,
Yeah. Let me go through this process again, because this is an important process and an important question, I think. So, remember, the voter, if this was a real election, this controller device would not be facing the voter as they walk in.
no, not that.
It's gonna be turned around, the voter then will be given the two things that they need, and they go to any open booth. And then you mentioned, if they don't glance back at the controller to see that, the voter is never gonna look at the controller. But on the screen here, as Dwayne's just set me up for, it is very clear. It says, take your printed record, and these lights are flashing at you at the bottom. Now, we know that there may be a voter who doesn't read the screen, they don't see those lights, and they try to leave without taking their ballot and scanning it. So we've also given the polling place official an indicator here that says, at booth 2, the voter entered the booth, they made their selections, they printed their record, but they never removed the paper. So that's the indicator. When you see that orange status, it's big and orange, and it says, you need to find out what's going on at booth 2. If that voter walked away, we need
those
to.
lights remain blinking.
Those remain blinking until that piece of paper gets
Okay.
removed. Yes, sir.
So what we'd like to do is have you come up and actually practice voting. Now, both of us are up here to answer your questions, so by all means, ask more questions. But for the sake of time, we'd like to kind of move forward a little bit.
Just as a reminder, folks, come up, try it, test it out, touch it, feel it. Your evaluation forms, there'll be a person at that front table where you came in the door. You can return them there at that front check-in table, okay? Thanks again for coming today, everybody. We really appreciate your time.
This is the scanner that the voter would ultimately put their paper ballot through. And this is the screen where voters would make their selections. And we're gonna have Daryl here vote for you so we can watch.
Okay, I can't vote now. I haven't heard the controller. You're the person.
Okay, not Daryl, somebody else. Sir, do you mind if I film you going through and voting?
If you what?
If I film you going through and voting? So now Herbert has his voter ticket. And now Daryl is scanning the barcode on the ticket side. And getting a paper to put into the machine and that 5-digit code that the voter needs. Now we're going to go over to the machine and Herbert's going to go ahead and make his selections. Now he enters his 5-digit code. He's going to put his paper into the machine. Confirms that the paper is in correctly. So,
That happens in the software program with election before it gets to you can also do it where that's something that's counted the way they set it up. So that when the voter gets here, the voter doesn't have to do
I want to both see
now you can look at his printed selections and put it into the ballot scanner to cast his vote. There we go. That's what the process looks like. Yay!